is the Rangers Journal now.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Wednesday night. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive into our upcoming European adventure. I'm tempted to ask Mitch how he's getting on because I know he's just opened a bag of crisps, but I won't. I'll go to Doug because he's the only one not eating just now. How are you doing, Doug, tonight?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Looking forward to this evening's chat and obviously the build up to the big game.
And Steph, I haven't been on the same pod as you before, so I don't know what your history is with the Rangers Journal, but how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Pleased to be back. Had a bit of a hiatus, but yeah, buzzing to be back and got my ticket for Tuesday's game this morning, so I'm happy as Larry.
I'm jealous. I'm out in Sweden, so I'll be watching, hopefully in RTV. And Mitch, you know you've had a chance to kind of hoover that bag of crisps. How are you?
I've not dusted the full bag quite yet. So if for everyone else watching, you're going to see me munching that over the next few minutes. But I'm good. It's nice to be back with Steph. It's been a wee while, as you say, Steph. You've been away. And it's always a pleasure to be joined by you and Doug.
Well, it's getting close to the real deal now. We're actually closing in on the start of the season. Less than a week till we play Panathinaikos. I did a wee bit of a quick look at Panathinaikos. Obviously, we know they come from Athens. They play in green and white. They've got a shamrock in their badge. What's not to like? History-wise, apparently they're one of the three clubs never to be relegated. I think they've won 20 titles and 20 cups, 8 doubles. And obviously one of the last season, I think they were runners-up. They were third at the end of the regular part of the season and then moved up to second just behind Olympiacos I say just behind, they were 16 points behind, but we were 17, so the less said about that, the better. I don't know what you guys know about Panathinaikos, but Steph, how are you feeling about the game coming towards us a bit like a steam train just now? Are you confident? What do you know about Panathinaikos? What do you think our chances are?
I was looking a wee bit into it earlier today, and it's quite scary, similar in the way that Russell Martin wants us to play, the way that they do this kind of high intensity, high press. I think the difference is they've obviously been together a wee bit longer than our team. So I feel like we're a wee bit undercooked for this game. But it's the first competitive game we'll get a chance to see. I think there's probably been good reason why most of the games have been behind closed doors because he's tweaking things and he doesn't want us all to boo the friendlies anymore. So yeah, I'm just buzzing for a real competitive game just to kind of see this supposed plan in action.
Yeah, the real test is going to be seeing what we do next week, and it's a bit of a mixture of trepidation and excitement at the moment. What about you, Mitch? You're usually quite positive. How are you feeling about the first leg next week?
Do you know something? I'm not feeling that. I'm feeling all right. I think when it comes to Panathinaikos, they are probably this summer where we were last summer. As a club, they're a bit of a basket case at the moment, and just going to put it, a spade's a spade here. They've been through a lot of weird off-the-field troubles. They've had a lot of issues domestically, a lot of fan unrest. I think we all know how the story goes, as they say. They've also had quite a lot of player churn over the last 2 years as well. The Panathinaikos team that we are going to come up against are not the same Panathinaikos that ran riot in Europe 18 months ago. A lot of the better players have been sold for good money, and they've not necessarily been replaced with players that are going to set the world on fire. They're probably... What I think we're going to see is two teams go at it, hammer and tong with each other, and it's going to be a proper game of football over 2 legs. It's not going to be... I don't think anyone's going to be playing a game of shy wains don't get fed, as the expression goes. I think they're just two teams gung-ho at each other. I don't know, Doug will know more probably about how many players Panathinaikos have maybe brought in this summer. Doug, I'm not chucking you under a bus, I just know that you've normally got these things lined up. But I'd imagine their incomings are very similar numbers to what our incomings are. So I think it's going to be a case between the 2 legs of who makes the first mistake between the 2 teams. And that leads me on to Doug. Doug, have you got Doug? Oh wait, our Doug's got transfer market open. I can see it in his eyes.
Always.
Oh, Billy's muted himself. Billy, you've muted yourself, mate.
I had to mute because I've got a couple of cats in the house and they were just about to beat the tar out of each other. So it was the lesser of two evils. What about you, Doug? Are you seeing it as the sort of slugfest that Mitch does? Do you think it's going to be nice, aggressive, attacking game?
I think it could go either way. I think both teams will be wary to a degree. We're wary because we're a new team, obviously with a new manager, a new philosophy, and so we'll want to kind of settle in and get to grips with all that. But I think they'll be wary because Rui Victoria's already come out and mentioned the amount of prep that they're doing for this game. They're obviously showing us a lot of respect. They consider us to be a storied European team, which over the last 5 to so plus years, I think we definitely have been. So they're coming into this game, I think, knowing that will be a tough game, and so I don't think they'll potentially go all out to start with either, especially given that they're obviously away in the first leg. And our major, when it comes to Europe, our major card is Ibrox. Our runs in Europe are built on how we do at Ibrox. If we don't do well at Ibrox, we won't do as well. So I think that they'll come in with that. I would imagine they're looking at it the same way we look at games when the ties are flipped, and that they'll want to come, keep it tight, keep in the tie, and take us back to their place. And that's when they'll really set the handbrake loose. Touching on Mitch's point, they have brought in 3 players so far. They've promoted quite a few youngsters. They are I believe they're having a bit of financial trouble at the moment, a little bit of issues. So so that's why they've sold a lot of players. But they've tried to, I think someone said as well, they've been together for a wee while. In terms of, although they play a similar style, they're probably a little more settled in it, and they've sort of banked on keeping some of their players. So although they have sold players, they've strategically kept some of the players that offers have come in from to try and have a level of continuity in their team. So from that aspect, they'll be kind of comfortable. But I think the issue for them will be some of the players that they have sold have been some of the better ones, the ones that had the flair and the ability to unlock a defence, and particularly their attacking mid from last year, who was very good, or sort of attack mid striker, who was very good. And set up a lot of chances because they're not a high-scoring team. They do get goals, however, from across their team, which is something we struggle with. But they're not a high-scoring team. So, yeah, I think it could be a little bit sticky to start off with, and then ideally, the crowd will get us going. We'll settle in, and hopefully it'll be us that'll sort of push into the ascendancy.
Yeah, I had to look at what you were talking about there with their goals record. Isn't that terrifying? 42 goals in 32 games, I think, last season. So I don't know if it's very difficult to know if it will be a high-scoring game this early in the season, but that gives you a wee bit of hope that maybe we can try and keep them out at Ibrox, depending on who we play. It's going to be the first test for Russell Martin, and one of my concerns about Russell Martin coming in was that he doesn't have any European chops as such. Steph, how do you think Russell Martin's going to do against an experienced campaigner like Rui Vittoria? Is it going to be a step up for him, or do you think that, given the managers he's faced in the Championship and the EPL, do you think it's going to be nothing he hasn't already encountered, or do you think this is going to be a first test for him?
I think he's obviously came up against stronger opposition in the EPL, and to some extent maybe some of the teams in the Championship. But I think it's more the Ibrox pressure that I don't think there's any really preparing you for that. You just kind of need to start the game, see how it goes. The one thing I'm worried about is I'm not changing his approach if it's not working, because he's got quite a kind of set way of doing things, and it's not the same as Clement in terms of like a rigid structure. I know he kind of moves his formations around, but my worry is that he just sticks with it because it's his first game, his first real competitive game, and he doesn't think about changing it because it's too risky. I'm just worried. I'm worried about that kind of side of it. But I think he's probably faced bigger and better teams. I just think it's the Ibrox kind of pressure pot that will get to him more than anything. It will not get to him, but it will get to some of the players, but it won't get to him. But yeah, I think he's faced better teams in Panathinaikos in his management career. So I don't think he'll be bothered about it. But yeah, as I say, once the boo boys start, if there's a misplaced pass or we gotta go down early, then I think that's when the pressure starts to crank up. But I don't think he'll be scared of Panathinaikos. I think he'll more be scared of the Ibrox crowd more than anything.
I mean, given what we saw at half time in that friendly, you could understand why. To bounce it back to Doug, you'll have had a look at Rui Vitória, and he's got quite an impressive CV. He's won titles with Benfica. He's got to the quarter-finals of the Champions League. He also had the worst ever Portuguese campaign in the Champions League as well, which, again, horrible sort of symmetry with ourselves there. Do you see even this early in the season it being a decisive battle between the managers, or do you think it's going to be one of these sort of like scrappy games where just it could be small margins, or the team that wants it most is going to be the who goes through, or do you think it is going to be a tactical battle where it's going to be a real test of whether Martin can get the better of a seasoned European manager? What do you think, Doug?
I mean, I think when you're playing at this level, there's always tactical elements to the game. I think we saw that really well when we were under Gio, and that was one of the things that made the differences. In addition to the sort of the Ibrox factor, the big difference getting us through games was Gio's in-game tactical changes, making big impacts to the game, especially when he sort of found the trick, if you like, of having Lundstrom as that kind of drop-in extra defender. And he made changes like that mid-game, and you immediately saw the difference. It was like it's one of the few times I can think of watching Rangers where it was just so obvious that you could just track it. Oh, he's made this change, and now this has happened. It was so nice. It was just such a really good example. If you're wanting, anyone that's watching wants to learn about tactics, those are great games to watch from that point of view. And I do think we'll see some of that, particularly because Martin, is a very tactically forward manager. As you say, Rui Vitória is very experienced. They had a really good run, I believe. Was it last year in the Conference League? They got quite deep into that before going out to Fiorentina. Like you said, he's been managing for, I think, since the late 80s. He's been managing, so he's a very experienced manager. So he will know. He will know a thing or two, and there will be an element of that. But I think all football games can come down to who wants it most when it's a knockout tie. That's one of the great things about cup competitions. You can have tactics all you want, but sometimes the team that wants it more will, like you say, just find that small margin. Sadly, you don't have to look too far back in our cup. And our cup runs to see a small team who just wanted it more and found that margin. And so I do think, though, that that's something Martin does have in him, though. It was one of the first things that when I started looking into him back when he was getting linked in the sort of first instance, and I wanted to find out about who he was and what kind of manager he was. Man management was one of the first things that came up. So I do believe he's got that in him as well, or at least I hope so, because I think that it's that blend that I think has been missing over the last few managers. We've either had managers who I thought have been quite good with the players, but maybe not quite as good tactically, or managers who have been decent tactically, but maybe don't quite have that same oomph to them. The Gerrard era was the period where I think we kind of had that balance, not simply from the manager, but from his management team. You had Gerrard, who was the totemic sort of guy there, the one that everyone could look sort of up to and he could inspire. And you would see him live the game with the players. And then you had the tactical team around him that would sort of do that. I think Gio had, some of the tactical aspects, but I don't think he was as good of a man manager. I didn't quite see that same bite to the team under him. I felt like I watched the bite slowly kind of come away from the team as the European run finished. I'm not sure if Phil had either. Clement had a tactical identity, but touching on what Steph said before, he had the thing that is the one worry about Martin is, will he move from that tactical identity if it gets to a point where it's not working? Martin has talked, we've seen him on Sky Sports and things, talking about having learned lessons from what he did before. He particularly touched on things like the dark arts as being something he didn't have enough of in his team. So I'll be really interested to see, are we going to see more of the dark arts from our team in future? Because I think you could probably say that about us in recent years as well. We've not maybe used the dark arts to the best effect as we can. So it'll be interesting to see that. But coming sort of back to the point of the question, I think it's both, because I think you need both.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Lots of things we're going to learn in less than a week now. One of the things that's kind of fascinated me about this, Mitch, to kind of bounce this over to you, is we'll go into the Dunfermline game in a bit more detail in a wee bit, but are we undercooked in terms of that? That was the word that Steph used, and to be honest, it's the one that kept springing to mind when I was visualising like this Rangers team like going into next week. I kept thinking of the infamous Ibrox hot dog. Are we too
talking about Kieran Dowell's legs then?
But no, I'm trying not to use phrases like Russell Martin's European sausage and stuff like that. Is it too pink? But you are wondering, are we cooked enough? Basically, are we undercooked? And what do you think of the pre-season strategy and preparations, Mitch? To me, I understand some of what he's done, but it's an odd run up to a big game like this in terms of what we've done so far. What are your thoughts?
I think that everybody just needs to unclench their knickers a wee bit there and take them back at their backside. I think when it comes to this season's pre-season, it's been very meticulously laid out, and there's also a lot to remember that a lot of this pre-season was already pre-booked before Russell Martin walked into the building. St George's was pre-booked, Club Bruges was pre-booked, Middlesbrough I think was only announced at the back end of the season, or maybe a week or two after the season finished. These were all things that were quite clearly lined up prior to the season finishing. And I think actually what Russell Martin's done in a lot of ways really, really helps the players, especially when you've got, right now we've probably got somewhere in the region of about 33 or 34 contracted players. Now, rightly or wrongly, there's rumours that some of them have been chopped up into groups that are training individually who will probably move on. And then a core group working together at the moment, that are going to form the basis of at least the next, between now and the end of August, call it. I think having the players away to St George's when there's been such a turnover, cracking idea. Get them all away. You cannot leave each other's pockets. You are in each other's faces and spaces 24/7. Get to know the teammates that you're going to play with. Get to know what makes them tick. Get to know, even daft stuff, what sort of music they like. Find out a little bit about home life. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Do you have a partner? No partner? Find out, put the lunatics together in lunatics corner. So you put people like me in the corner, and then you put, the people will start to automatically segregate themselves into little mini groups of the ones that they start to draw that close attraction on personality levels together. And then you're going to have that overall underlay of the senior players are going to make the younger players who are coming up, the likes of Curtis, Gentles, Bailey Rice. They're going to have these boys integrated well with the new signings that have come in, because some of them are quite young. When you look at like Gasma that's come in there, he's only 21, 22. Then you look at Asgard there, he's again 23. Not exactly a spring chicken, but he's also not, he's not tight, he's not exactly young, but again, comparatively to have left England for the first time coming up to a different league, he's still relatively young in terms of life experience. And I think it's quite good to have them away, and I actually think in a lot of ways to operate most of this pre-season behind the lens of everybody, ourselves included, over-analysing every little detail of what is a behind-the-scenes friendly. I want players to make the mistakes there, especially when they're new. Go and get the yips out your system. Go and make that pass that you know that you shouldn't really make, and you go, you know what, I now know my teammate hasn't got the legs to reach that risky pass, so I'll not make it again in an actual game scenario. Like case in point with the Fernandez pass where I think half the fan base just about gave themselves an aneurysm when they seen, the fridge freezer play a bad pass that led to a goal, and you're like, it's a behind the scenes friendly. Like, that's where he's supposed to make the mistakes. Like, let him go and do it there, so that when we get to a Sunday night and we're up the road in Aberdeen or whatever, after a tricky European game, he doesn't go and make it then when whoever the first choice centre backs, if Jigger's tired or if Suter's tired, and we tell him, look, Manny, it's your time, like you need to get in. He doesn't go and make that mistake in game because he's made the mistake behind the scenes. And I think that helps so many of these young players, I think, take that pressure off them. And then they also got the sampling experience of Ibrox, obviously, against Bruges. I know most of the new signings didn't play then, but they at least walked out onto the pitch, felt the atmosphere, felt fan expectation, and heard fan expectation. Rightly or wrongly. But I think it's been quite good. I think it's been pretty good for the players to have most of what they've done out of the limelight, and they've played plenty of games out of the limelight as well. They've done TNS, they've done Bruges, they've done Dunfermline, they've done the game again at the weekend there against, who was that they played down at St George's? Like, they had the game. Aye, there we go. They've had to get, that's 4 games, and they've only been back, 3 weeks? They've played nearly a game a week. That's plenty. Like, in the first 2 weeks of that, they were away and sweating off, like, all the kebabs and drink that they've been having while they've been on their holidays. Like, I've got no issue with that. Like, the games have came thick and fast. The videos we've seen, Russell Martin and Gers have, let's be honest, they've beasted them over the summer. He has a reputation for his teams being fitter than a butcher's dog. And I'm all on board for that. I want to see them suffer during pre-season.
That's all fine with me. As someone who kind of grew up on legends of Ghislaine Sands and stuff like that, we do like to see our players suffer because then you know they're gonna last the season. Steph, you kind of touched on something I thought was quite interesting. Like we've got this sort of strategy. We're going to have some sort of bounce game for some players. Was it Hartlepool 2 days before the game against Panathinaikos? We're then going to have like the friendly in between the 2 qualifiers. To me, I get why he's doing it, but you talked about the danger of Ibrox turning, and I would hope would be more supportive on a European night. And Mitch makes a good point about making mistakes in bounce games, but there is a world of difference between misplacing a pass in St George's and kind of, you just tuck and get on with it, and between misplacing a pass in front of 50,000 people on a Champions League night. How do you feel about the strategy we've got coming into the game? And do you have fears that if we went a goal down, for example, you've now suddenly got players who aren't used to, never mind Ibrox, but a lot of these guys will never have played at a stadium where the whole place can go in uproar when one pass goes astray. Do you think there's a danger that if things didn't start well, that we could actually see players struggle a bit?
Yeah, I think Martin actually referenced it in one of his most recent interviews about old habits creeping in and things like that. So I think, and Mitch and Doug kind of both mentioned his kind of man management style. I think that will be so important. So because they will make mistakes, they're all human beings. They will make mistakes during game time. When they make that mistake, that he's the first guy to say, it's okay, keep powering on. Because I think it's probably best for them to get, you don't want to make the mistake to lead to a goal, but they're probably needing to get the mistake out the way to, like, as Mitch says, get the yips out the way, even in a competitive match, just so they can see the way it's taken by the crowd. Because, I mean, I'm being probably quite unprecedentedly negative about it, but maybe the crowd won't get on their back because we know that it is a new team. They are predominantly young that's came in. But I think if they do make that mistake, I think Martin will be the first one to go to them and kind of almost put that extended arm around them from the sidelines. I think he'll just say to them, it's okay. I don't have the same fear with them going into their shell, the way that Martin's been speaking about the characters and things like that. He says it's a quiet dressing room, which is strange, but he says in terms of characters, there's some big characters in there now. So I don't think they'll go into their shell. I think they will be shell shocked, some of them, because like you say, none of them have kind of played on this kind of stage before. But I think they'll get used to it pretty quickly because they all seem to be buying into the kind of philosophy that Martin's putting to them. Well, just obviously we're just hearing that's what he's saying. We need to see it on the pitch, but I don't think the team will crumble. I think now we've got a good blend of old and young, and I think, you know, rightly or wrongly, Tav will be in the team, and he will be telling them what to expect. He'll probably be showing them clips of some of their best players, you know, getting booed off the pitch and things like that over the years, but he'll also show some of the nights, like, you know, the winning goal by Big Lunny against RB. And he'll show nights like that and show them this is what you'll get if we do it right every time. And I think the way that they're being coached just now, that tactically, strategically, and the man management style, I think they'll get it right more than they get it wrong. So I'm actually really looking forward to this season. So I don't have a worry that they'll be going to their shells. I really don't. I think he is as good a man manager as we've had. So I'm not worried about it.
Excellent. This is getting me ready to watch the game tomorrow. And actually, I think we got like a little glimpse of what we might be looking at next week. I know Mitch has done a slide of the team that played against Dunfermline yesterday.
Doug's done that. I take no credit.
Yeah.
Also, equally, Doug, if it's wrong, it's on you.
Yeah, definitely Doug that did that, and I've got to be honest, like I'm quite excited. It seems like we seem to have, I don't know if it's come in a loan option or what, but this striker Danny Lowe that we seem to have brought up from the Championship, 3 assists and a goal. Where has he been? That's the team that played. To me, that looks a lot like a team you might see line up next week. We have heard on the grapevine some very good things about Tello Asgard coming out on training. Obviously, it's just training, but still. Doug, what are your thoughts on that lineup yesterday? Do you think that's Russell Martin like trying out the side that he might go with next week?
It certainly could be. I think there's possibly 2 changes in there, and if he thinks that our new signing is ready, then he might come in for Dowell, which I'm sure would immediately make him 50% more popular in Ibrox if that rolled out. Although, you know, from everything we've heard, Dowell is apparently doing really well in training. So, I mean, if he's doing well, then fine. I know most people, you know, that's the one sort of glaring issue with the team there, that he's there. We've seen nothing from him in 2 years, so, you know, he's going to have to win Ibrox over if he's going to be a part of the team this season. But we'll need to see. I mean, the rumour is we're still in to buy another 2 wingers before the end of the window. The window's still got ages to go, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's not a mainstay come the end of the window. And then the most recent news, literally within the last hour, it's coming out that apparently Asgard's gotten injured in this game against Dunfermline. How much of an injury that is, I don't know. The reports didn't really say, other than obviously they spun it as dramatically as possible for him to get fit in time for the match. So we'll maybe find out.
He's lost a leg and everything. Like, you know, if you believe the media, he's lost a leg and a foot.
Like, that's fine. Yeah, I've seen Paralympic football. It's good. It's not an excuse. So yeah, I'm sure we'll find out probably in the next 24 hours or so what the situation is with that. But I do think we still have a couple of players that can come in and should have enough to put in a performance at this point. You know, Batrami did well against Bruges when he came on. Curtis was excellent in the Bruges game. I'm sure both could come in and do a job against a team like Panathinaikos. So you've got Cortez also. So we've got a few options there if there are injuries or if there's some swaps. But I do think you are looking at something that could well bear witness to what we're seeing. Like you touched on there, Danilo's having a good pre-season. You would probably argue that's potentially our best back four, even though you've got one out of position. I'm sure that I know a lot of people aren't convinced by Jeff Day, although I still think he's got plenty to offer. He could easily start that game. You could see Aaron's on at right back as well, although I do think Tav will probably play. So yeah, from everything we've seen, this would appear to be, other than Rothwell, I've not seen or heard as much about him over the preseason. Talk's been about other players, but other than that, this seems to be, sort of the ones that are putting the shift in at the moment.
And Mitch, in terms of who we go for up front, like from what I heard in the game yesterday, we were playing Osgaard and Dow almost like a couple of number 10s, like we did in the Gerrard era with the likes of Rebo. We've got a few options up front. We've got a few other strikers up front, but they haven't really featured in the pre-season. Who would you be expecting us to go with? Assuming Tello Asgard's available next week, what's your expectation in the attacking third? What do you think Martin's going to do? Is this who he's going to play, or is he going to throw us a curveball, bringing in Dessers or Igaman, do you think?
I think we'll see Dessers and Igamani probably on the bench, and I think that's the most likely sensible option. I think they two are roughly about 2 weeks behind the rest of the group in terms of fitness because of when they got back to the main group. Dessers was given a wee extended period of time off, and obviously Hamza had his visa issues where he was obviously locked out the country for a wee bit until that visa was sorted. So I think Danilo makes the most sense to start up front with. Assuming Asgard's fit, I don't mind. I haven't watched a wee bit of Asgard while he was at Luton last year. I quite like him in that free roaming area. Just let him roam about between the wing. He can handle himself perfectly fine in the wing. He's a big bit of a boy. I mean, he's about 6 foot roughly. Good physical presence. He can ride a tackle if he needs to. Good pair of heels on him. I've got no issues with him, bombing up and down the channel if he needs to. Equally, it could very well be that I could see a world that we say, right, we'll tell you take an hour, and then we put Cortez on, and just keep running. Because we all know Cortez is a speed demon, but the difference is he can control a ball. He's not like Matondo, where he's a speedboat without a driver. I think there's plenty there with him, and I think the right-hand side, I could see Dowell on a pure, and again, this isn't a personal preference, from a pure fitness standpoint from where players are right now, Dowell could potentially make sense because we don't know how long the new lads obviously had with the group to train with everybody. So it could just be that we say, well, I'll tell you what, Kieran, you've had the full pre-season with us, you know what's expected, you know what I need. Because equally, anybody that starts can equally come off if it's not working out. I don't really want to see Max Aarons getting pushed out to the left. Where I could potentially see a change as putting Aarons in at right back and then putting Tav in at Suter's position. And then starting with one of the more traditional left backs. That's just me personally. I know that Aarons over his career has played left back, but me personally, I don't want to start the season off with square pegs and round holes. Give me a left back as a left back and a right back as a right back. Tav has reached the age now where, if required, he can go into right back, but I would probably prefer to see him at centre back, and that's probably music to Doug's ears because somebody said I don't mind seeing him in the lineup.
When you say round pegs and round holes and left backs as left backs, I always have flashbacks to, I think it was one of the games with Ali where it was in a cup game. We were playing a left back and a left back in front. The left back got injured, and everyone was thinking we'd just pull the midfield left back, but no, Ali kind of switched the right back and the left back and put on a centre half, and it was just an absolute car crash. So I think you're right. I think this early in the season it makes sense to go with people that know their positions because they're not going to have gelled. But Steph, in terms of the rest of the team, I was interested to get your take on the midfield, whether you think he'll go with the three, which looks decent on the face of it. You also, when you were talking about Tav in the defence, Not wanting to reignite the Tav debate because we could do like an hour on that, but you said for better or worse, you think he'll play. In your opinion, is that better or worse? And also, do you see any changes either in the defence or any other options in the midfield that we might look at on Wednesday night?
No, I think that midfield's pretty strong. I know Diamandi's one that splits opinions as well. But I really like the lad for. I mean, he's centre of gravity. He's like a freaking spider crab the way he is on the ground sometimes, the way he holds on and retains the ball. I really like Dio. I honestly think that's the strongest. And I liked when in Russell Martin's interview talking about utilising Raskin the way he's supposed to be used. And I think he kind of touched upon how, there was a lot on his shoulders to drive the team and do basically everything. Because he was, the standout player last season, and now it's just taking him back to basics. Do what you do well, and all the other responsibilities will be shared around. And for me, that's why I really like Russell Martin. I truly believe he's going to get the best out of these players. So I'm buzzing for that midfield three. Like genuinely, I think that's our strongest midfield three. And I know there's been talk about Dio, Turkish media doing their usual, trying to sell our players on the cheap, but I'd be holding on to him as much as I could. But yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that one. You talk about Kieran Dowell. I think he will play because he's left-footed and because we don't have a kind of left-footed right winger just now. I know Gassama can play on both, but he's predominantly right-footed. I think Dowell will play because he should be match fit. He's done all the pre-season, and by all accounts, he's impressing. And I know. I don't. It's obviously not going to be a popular opinion, but I do think he'll play. Tav will play, in my opinion. He'll play. There doesn't seem to be any signs of anyone having I was going to say a rude word, having the audacity to drop him. So I think he'll play, and I do think that Aarons will play on the left. I don't think besides Aarons is his player, it's his choice, so he'll play who he prefers. I still think Jeffy's got a lot of learning to do. He's so raw, and he's culpable for so many goals from last season as well. So I kind of think that this will be the exact lineup, to be perfectly honest. Which I'm not hating. I think there is a potential. I don't think he'll throw Gassama in because they'll only have maybe this week to train with the guys. I think he'll play Kieran Dowell for 60 and then bring him on to put the fear of God into their left backs and the pace and everything, getting in behind just in case we need a wee sharp kind of turn of pace there. So I think it will line up basically like this.
No, and merit award for a left turn from a rude word into audacity. That's some quality podding there.
That's a quality.
Certainly better than I'm capable of, Steph.
I would be with you. I like Dio. I think you'd be mad to go from Rangers to any Turkish club when you see what's happened to any players that have gone out there recently. They either don't get paid or they get their contracts terminated because of the Turkish systems. I think you'd be daft to go. Dowell, I'm a wee bit kind of on board with Mitch there. I think if we're playing him as a body with a left foot for a couple of games, fine, as long as we get him punted, because I don't think he's Rangers quality personally. Moving on to we're obviously looking at the upcoming game and best case scenario, but we have got, unlike previous European seasons, we've got 4 possibilities this season. I know Doug's prepared a lovely slide for this, but basically we could get into the Champions League, we could drop down and hopefully qualify for the Europa. We might have to qualify for the conference if we didn't do that. And actually, first in a wee while, we could get bumped out of Europe full stop, which I don't think any of us sees happening. I'm kind of intrigued to get your take, Mitch, on what do you think offers we all love the Champions League and no one wants to turn the money down, but what do you think offers the best chance for success at home and abroad this season, in European terms? Is it getting to the Champions League? Is it maybe better dropping into Europa or the Conference League? Because it's a lot of games for a new squad. What do you think? I mean, we'd all love to win the Champions League, but being realistic, what do you think would be best in terms of bringing in money from Europe and giving us a chance to win the league?
So obviously we're going to win the Champions League now, Billy. Now that we've said that, just we'll get that out the open now.
Visualization.
You know, just speak it into existence, as they say. But I think, no, in all honesty, we all know when it comes to the Champions League, it's the cherry on top for us. And I think actually a really, really weird thing for a mindset perspective for the players, it's a little bit pressure off, where you say, well, do you know what? The Champions League, we all know that probably as a squad, we are not fundamentally ready to go into the Champions League and give a healthy, good account of ourselves. We could go there by all means, and we, under the new format, you just need to stay in the top 24 and you can get into the knockout phases. And we've seen last season that's relatively not, it's not out the realms of possibility to do that. You just need to string one or two decent results together and keep yourself, you know, in the right frame of mind. I think Europa League will probably, in my opinion, will probably be where we end up. And I think that's also quite a good building block. But what I would like to see is, at the very least, let's give the Champions League qualifiers a proper go. Let's go in there, gun ho, the riches, the money, and everything else. It is what it is. I park all that aside because I'm sorry, but that's for people who wear suits for a living, and that ain't me. Like, what I'm more interested in is seeing my players from our club performing the highest level possible. You know, and the Champions League is the highest possible, you know, level that they can perform at on a European level. And I think it would be great to see them there. But equally, you know, I think we all know the bulk of our squad that are there right now, they're Europa League seasoned campaigners. So there's no reason to think that if it goes Pete Tong against Panathinaikos or in the next round of qualifying, there's no reason for us to be worrying about getting knocked out before summer finishes, because the quality that we have as a team is already there on show. But as I say, we're going to have to just go ahead and win the whole Champions League now that Billy said that.
Yeah, as if. Doug, for you, Champions League, Europa League. Well, I mean, basically, the Champions League, being candid, you could do better this season than we had the time we got there last, because you get a bit more sort of like of a range of clubs that you might play. But you could get a kicking in the Champions League. You could have a decent run in Europa League. You know, I'm not saying you could win the Conference League, but, you know, as you drop down, there's more chance of progressing. Where would you rather see us?
It's a difficult question, really. I mean, obviously, you want to be at the top table, and there's plenty to gain from that. You know, if you're looking at it from a business perspective and the finances, then that's the obvious place. That will help boost the club and push us forward and help us, you know, get back to the top domestically and stay there. So there's all that. It's just whether do we want to get straight into it, and then, you know, you risk the potential of what happened last time when we went in and we didn't quite have enough there. But at the same time, you know, you potentially get those glamour ties against big clubs, or the storied ones, the ones with history, people we've met before. And then obviously up against that is the Europa League, where, you know, I'm now at the point over the last few years where I'm now confident in the Europa League. It doesn't matter who we draw. I have confidence that we can perform well. And I think, you know, over the last five to 6 years, we've shown the evidence of that, where we've come up against strong teams and performed well. It doesn't always work out, but I mean, we've been in the sort of the last 16, I think 4 or 5 attempts, or last 16 or further for the last 5 attempts. So, you know, that's a really good record, and we've had some amazing games. I mean, obviously, not just the run to Seville, but matches like Fenerbahce away, which are matches that we'll remember for a long time. And I think in terms of my personal preference, I'd rather have the memories of matches like that overall. And therefore, you know, I'm quite happy to be in the Europa League if that's where we end up. I understand the disadvantages that has in terms of the other aspects, but like I say, I'll go into that thinking that we can potentially win the competition. I don't think it's a ridiculous statement to make that we can go into a Europa League competition and think to ourselves, we could potentially win this competition. It's still an outside chance, but it's not a zero-sum chance. Whereas I think, if you're being realistic, the Champions League, the statistical chance of that is so small, it's as good as being none at all. So you've got that going for it. And that's why, for me, my big thing this season is just get past this round, because then that guarantees us league phase football in one or the other. And I'll be quite happy either way, to be honest. So we've got like some of on the slide there, the route that we'll need to take if we're going to get into the Champions League. And if you look at it, a lot of these teams are teams that we've come up against before. I mean, the seeded column, if we do get past Panathinaikos, we'll not be able to play any of them, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately, but I mean, Feyenoord, Bruges, Braga, all teams we've played and won against in recent history. And you're looking at, on the opposite side, the unseeded teams, the teams that we would be meeting. Nice, we recently dispensed with them away. Fenerbahce, we put out, obviously, most recently. These are teams that we can beat. We could end up playing Feyenoord in the playoff round if we got that far, potentially. So, looking at that, it's not an impossible task to get there. So therefore, as I say, my big thing is just if we can get past this one round, then for me, that's me comfy and happy, because we're in league stage football. I'm happy either competition. I'm just I think we gain bonuses from both. Being in European competition is ultimately just the main thing, because that is what players want to be. They want to be in European competition, so that'll help us, get better players, and that ultimately helps us domestically.
It's a valid point, Steph. Do you share that take that Europa League would, as long as we get group stage and ideally Europa League, that's good enough? Because one thing that keeps coming back to me is under the new system, I'd heard someone explain the coefficient as it is now, and it was something scary like the team that comes last in the Champions League group stage, even if they don't win a game, I think you have to win something like 5 games in the Europa League group stage to have the same number of points as them. So there is a danger that if we get too comfy in the Europa League in the next couple of seasons, that the oncoming juggernaut, I presume you've seen the sort of coefficient fall off in like a couple of years' time and the qualifying that's involved in. It could actually get quite messy if we don't start qualifying for the Champions League. But are you happy this season with Europa League, or would you prefer Champions League and just get into it?
I'd be quite happy with Europa, to be perfectly honest. I know obviously the riches that Champions League brings, but we've just been bought over by billionaires. So I think that if we went out this round and dropped into Europa, I don't think they would decide to just walk away. Oh, you're crap, you didn't get Champions League the first time you're trying. So I'd be quite happy with Europa, but I'm kind of with the guys. Like I'd then be thinking, well, why can't we win it? Because it's the last step, and I feel like this new management team, and I feel like the new players and even the older players that have been there for a while have now got something to prove. We've got financial stability, we've got club stability, we've got the right infrastructure. Why not? So at the bare minimum, Europa, I'd be really disappointed if we dropped down to the Conference League. But I'd love to see us get past Panathinaikos, and mostly just, I think, to shut up some of the Russell Martin doubters, to be honest. I think give the guy a fair crack at the whip. He's not had a competitive match yet. So I think I'd love to get past this quite comfortably. But yeah, Europa League for me, and I don't ask for much, just win it.
It's funny, I'm actually just thinking, we started the pod asking, can we get through this tie? And we're grudgingly accepting that if we don't get through this tie, or we do and we drop into the Europa League, as long as we win it, we'll be okay with that. I don't think there's a clearer indication of what it is to be a Rangers fan. If you were one of the new signings tonight, that'll give you an idea like what to expect. Basically, yeah, just win the Europa League in your first season, we'll be happy. And the thing is, they have given us the last 5 or 6 years have kind of spoiled us in some ways. So we are right to expect that we could go quite deep in the competition. I guess, like, having talked through the various scenarios and aware that I don't want to take us over the hour the first time I'm hosting in this, I'm wondering what everybody thinks, like, in terms of how the first leg's going to go and how they expect the overall result to be, what everyone's expecting. So in terms of a result, Mitch, like, what are you expecting? What do you want from the first leg in terms of a result? And what do you think is going to happen? And you said you don't see us getting to the Champions League. Do you see us getting through this round? Is it a further round you see us getting kicked out?
I see us getting through it. I do think just I like to keep my glass half empty when it comes to Champions League, because I think when we start to give ourselves giddy expectations of the Champions League and everything else, I think that's when, as fans, we put unfair pressure on a relatively new team and a relatively new regime. I think this year should be about consistency and solidity. And for me, the bare standard for that is the Europa League. That's the standard that we've not, I don't want to say come accustomed to, but essentially, we've come accustomed to the Europa League. It's also worth remembering that we know how to manage a schedule through the Europa League, playing on a Sunday, Thursday, Sunday again. What we've not seen with this team is, if we can keep our domestic stuff together, and win the league this year, that's automatic entry into the Champions League next year because of our coefficient. We are guaranteed entry into the Champions League. So for me, give us the season of I'll take a season of continuality in the Europa League of give us the run that we're used to. Let's get out the group stages. Obviously all being well with a decent draw and everything else. But keep the focus on the domestic side of things. Keep the league first and foremost at the forefront. Because we win the league next year, we don't need to do this nonsense of going through qualifying rounds after qualifying rounds. To get into the Champions League, we parachute straight into the group stages. And I think, when you start to ask yourself, do you take a little bit of short-term pain this year by staying with what we know, and then know that the riches follow next summer if we do the domestic bits right? And again, it's always an if, because we've not kicked the ball yet. But I think, first and foremost, it's going to sound really contradictory as well. I want to have the hope that kills me. Get through this qualifying round. Do it. Finish the first leg, either still in the tie or ahead in the tie. Give me the hope that kills me. Take me through it. Take me through it. And as Doug says, at the bare minimum, European football of a group phase is guaranteed, no matter what the level is. So mission one, deal with the two-legged affair. And then, as I say, at that point, I'll start getting my pom-poms out at that point for the Champions League.
Terrifying thought, Mitch getting his pom-poms out there. I think that, give me the hope that kills me. I think they should have that. You know how they have the "This is Ibrox"? Give me the hope that kills me should be, in the exits and the way out where you're tapping the brickwork. You do that. What about you, Steph? Are you optimistic for the game next week and the tie overall? What do you think?
I actually am. Yeah, I'm kind of with Mitch. I think we'll get through it. I think that I don't think it'll be super comfortable, but I think we'll narrowly get through it. Yeah, I'm really excited about it, to be perfect. I'm just buzzing that competitive football's back, to be honest. It feels like it's been too long. But yeah, I think we'll get through the tie.
Well, we are the people's got us drawing 6-6 and winning 8-7 in penalties. So I don't know what he's enjoying tonight, but it's clearly having a nice effect. Doug, what about you? What do you see in the first leg and overall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident about the tie, because I think, unlike domestic football, Rangers have given me reason to be confident about European football. We're never the same team in Europe than we are at home, and that's been, the ongoing issue, trying to find the magic in one and bring it to the other. So, yeah, I'm confident. I think can Panathinaikos put us out? Yes, they absolutely could. But at the same time, we can do the same to them. And I think if we play to the peak of our powers with the players that we've got that have been in this situation before, and some of the new players who I do think are look like exciting players, I do think we should have enough to do it over the tie. as is always the case, when you're playing at home first, if you can get the job done at home, then you'll make the away tie much easier. So if we can just try and, as I say, start the game sensibly, don't go too crazy, settle in, and then hopefully, Martin's work on the training pitch clicks, get a couple of goals for the good, and then be happy and take something and good and that we can hold on to in the second leg, and make Panathinaikos have to do all the work. So, as I say, I'd like to see. I think someone said something like 2-1 at home, 1-1 away. I could easily see something like that. I do think it will be reasonably close. Panathinaikos are a decent team, but European pedigree performance and coefficients would suggest that we should get past them.
Yeah, it's funny. The magnificently named I Am Chili Beef was saying that they think in terms of squad value, we're pretty much of a muchness with Panathinaikos. But when you actually looked at the coefficient or the ratings start of the end of last season, I think we were like 25th and they were about 111th. So there are plenty of reasons to be optimistic. And I started the pod sort of ambivalent, and now I'm kind of wishing the game was tomorrow, thanks to kind of the pep talk from you guys. I'm aware that we kind of want to keep it within the hour, and that I should mention our sponsors, Off to the Match I Go, who do down here, below Steph and Doug, do some fantastic Rangers kit. And if you go along and use the code Journal10, you'll get 10% off your order. So thanks to them. Thanks to everyone that's been contributing on the chat tonight. There's been some, as usual, some fun stuff and some unbroadcastable stuff because we need to keep our PG. But all that's left to say really is thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to Mitch, thanks to Steph, and thanks to Doug for all the quality content. And as you know, and it's the first time I get to say it, every night is a Rangers Journal night.